Good morning and welcome to this week's Grow, where we gather to recharge, organize, and work here as members of MWEG. We are so glad that you guys would join us today. We are continuing our series on Simply Connect, which is a summer initiative for our members to get out into the community and to connect with other people or family members that maybe they wouldn't, and to just stretch themselves a little bit to be more connected in various ways. And this week's theme is connecting with women. And so today we have three other women who are going to share their experiences of ways that they've been able to connect as members of MWEG and with women in their community, maybe their faith circle in their wards, or through their school programs, different things like that. So I will go ahead and introduce everybody that's with us today. We have Catherine Esslinger. She is our Empower Director at MWEG, and she has been doing living room conversations. We will also hear from Jess Lesweer-Houts, who is, she's a development intern for MWEG, but also is working at the Ballard Center at BYU in the Social Impact Lab. And then we also have Molly Hadfield with us, who is the lead moderator in our Facebook discussion group. Each of them have different perspectives and have had different and unique experiences in ways that they've connected with women. And so they're going to share those. And if you have comments, you can put them in, leave a comment in the discussion group on the video, or if you're watching live, you can just pop right in and share any comments or experiences that you've had. So Jess, why don't you go ahead and share with us your experience connecting with women and how MWEG has played a role in that, and what it was like for you.
Okay, yeah, I would love to share. So I am a development intern for MWEG right now, and I got to play a very large role in the student outreach for the conference in March. And that was honestly so awesome because I also work at the Ballard Social Impact Center, like Rachel mentioned, and there's a lot of very like-minded, civically engaged women of my generation there. And so I think my favorite part about being like involved in the student outreach was getting my other coworkers at my other job involved in MWEG. But I think that the main thing that I got to do with student outreach was I reached out to the presidents of clubs across all Utah campuses, like university campuses, that were either related to civic engagement, ethics, faith, or like women's groups. And so I reached out to like over 100 clubs and was able to be in correspondence with the presidents of each of these clubs. And then they were able to then invite like specific members that they thought would enjoy the conference, or they were able to basically like put out the information to anyone interested in their club. And we were able to increase student engagement at the conference by 140% from the last year. And I think that was super fulfilling for me, just because it was like a very tangible, like realizing how many people were connecting that wouldn't have connected otherwise, that wouldn't have been invited, who wouldn't have been there. And we were able to do a student breakfast beforehand, where we had some members of like the MWEG leadership team were able to come and like talk about their different jobs, their different roles. And I know that Jalaire was able to talk about like internship opportunities, and a lot of women afterwards like came up to me and they were like, how do you like your internship? And so I know it generated a lot of interest in getting involved like on a internship or like working level. And so I saw that firsthand. And then what I've loved also is afterward, being able to talk with some of the women that were there, whether they were my other coworkers or women that I met and have become friends with. Now like MWEG is a point of discussion and conversation for us, which is really cool. Because before it was just like my other job. And like at the Ballard Center, a lot of people are working two jobs. And so you kind of just, I don't know, our common thing is usually just the Ballard Center. But now I can have those discussions about politics and about ethics and about other just MWEG topics with my other coworkers while I'm at work, which has been really unique. And I think that in terms of like Simply Connect and connecting with women, the main thing that MWEG has offered me just in general has been realizing that there's like other like-minded people my age, which sometimes is hard to come by. Like a lot of times people my age are not that interested in making a difference in politics or just in the world in general. And so what I loved about being with other students at the conference was that we kind of all realized like, oh, there's more people like me, and also that we can keep inviting people to come and kind of see what it's all about. And yeah, but I've loved being part of MWIG and being part of the student engagement at the conference.
So one of the things that I know she said is people like me and like-minded, and you hear that not just from people of your generation, but from a lot of women that find MWEG and kind of like have kind of a light bulb moment. And I don't think necessarily, and I want all of you, if you have a thought on this, is not necessarily that that they found MWEG and feel like, oh, these people are like me, but maybe that they found an organization that is women-led, that is something that can empower them, and maybe that they want to be, like you were saying, oh, you can have these discussions on politics. Well, we all know that like that can be really tricky, but I think also introducing our friends or family members to MWEG is something, or any other local organization, right, that is working to do those kind of things, that when we do that, that we're kind of opening up our circle, our social circle, and inviting women to say, hey, I have something really awesome that I want to share with you. And I think it's right that we say people that think like me, but also I think people that hold certain values of peaceful communication and protecting democracy and those kind of things at like a certain higher level than maybe we thought they did. Do you guys have any thoughts of that? Because I know when I've invited people to MWEG, I always feel like I have to kind of think about it, but or if there's any other organizations that you guys think, because that's one of the things for Simply Connect for this week, is to invite someone to find a local organization led by women, or one that works to empower or protect women, and how we can get involved. So I love, Jess, that you were sharing your role with the conference, and that's something, if you're watching this and you've come or watched our MWEG conference, our annual conference that is in March, maybe you can invite, it's an easy way to invite a friend to come and kind of just get a little glimpse of what MWEG has to offer people. Any thoughts? Yeah, Catherine.
I was able to go to the student breakfast and see the fruits of all that Jess had done. And I really loved that we had created opportunities for students to be able to see that there were other people, other young people, because I think sometimes we feel like MWEG skews a little bit Gen X and slightly around there. And so it was really exciting to see the energy and the vision that students have. And I remember distinctly my very first MWEG gathering in 2017, where I was introduced to a woman of an older generation and her daughter, who was a millennial. And I did not have a lot of, at that point, I was so wrapped up in my own stuff that I didn't really have a lot of connection with women of those various generations and life phases and experiences. And that was so eye-opening to me, to be able to be through MWEG, to be mentored by women of older generations who've been involved in advocacy for a long time, and also to see the work that younger generations do also. MWEG has been wonderful for me to help me see the various generations and benefit from everyone's experience.
I was just going to add, both to Catherine and Jess's point, at the conference, I really loved seeing a lot more young people there. I think, at least speaking for myself, when you're a young adult, you're trying to figure out your own life and your own direction, and it's easy to get caught up in your world and like kind of a narrow view. And it's so lovely to have these young women like broadening the scope of their focus and getting involved. And so I'm really appreciative of all the efforts that went in there to on Jess's part and others that really brought some younger women to the table. I thought that was really lovely.
Yeah, and I think it's
And-
important that, sorry, Jess, I think it's important that we, as volunteers and leadership in MWEG, that we use almost like a mentorship role to connect with other people and just say, hey, this is something that I really love, and I would love to like teach you. I would love to show you some of the great benefits and things that I've learned, and come and meet people and really dive in and get involved and find ways that you can do that. I know that there's also local organizations that you can do that with. Jess, go ahead and share what you're going to share.
Yeah, I was just going to say, kind of on that same vein, that what I loved also was that I was inviting people from different clubs that had like already have their niche thing that they're like super passionate about. And then being able to realize, like, not only for myself, but for them and like all of us to realize, like, oh, like there's so many ways to make a difference in the world. And clearly we all care about doing that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be like giving time to like these different clubs and organizations. But that like they can all overlap. And so I thought that was super poignant, because it's like there's so many different perspectives and different focuses. And with like advocacy, there's like a million things, you know. And so I think that was eye-opening, that you can care about a lot of different things, but that they can all overlap in the compassion that you have and like the desire you have to like make a positive difference.
That's so important. And I think that you don't get that perspective unless you bring groups of people together. So I think that really illustrates well why connecting women is so important.
Well, and then we have, yeah, and like you said, connecting women. So then you have it's already like shared, a lot of shared experiences just of being female and being a part of this organization that you can like already just kind of expand on. And so as Molly said, gathering women. Molly, do you want to talk about gathering women that you had at your house recently?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people are aware, and maybe some are not. We, MWEG recently hosted some screenings of the Abortion Talks documentary, and a little background. It's less about abortion than it is about the talks. That with our history, especially in the discussion group of limiting conversation on the topic, that might be surprising to people. But the point of the documentary is to illustrate how people can come together and find respect and learn to communicate over such a divisive topic. So there were 3 nights that were available for screenings, and people could sign up to host a screening in their home. So I went ahead and did that. The first order of business was deciding who to invite. With a name like Abortion Talks, I hadn't seen it yet myself. And first of all, I wanted to invite women who I knew wouldn't run away at the term Abortion Talks. So I thought carefully about that. I tried to invite women who I thought would be open-minded, engage in good faith, be interested. And I ended up inviting like 12 or 14 people, but at the screening, I had about 8 women there. I invited both women I knew to be more progressive and some to be more conservative. Universally, everybody really enjoyed the screening itself. The women who couldn't come all were sad that they couldn't come. And now that I've seen it, I'm sad that they couldn't make it as well. And I'm hoping that we'll have an opportunity, and I think there is a plan that there will be further opportunities to show this film. We were able, aside from the documentary itself, we had some interactive time where we spoke with one another and listened to the leadership of both MWEG and Unify, who peacemaking and communication and relationship and community building are all part of their missions. And I thought that was helpful. It was interesting to talk to, like, at one point we paired off and talked a little bit. It was interesting to talk with one of my neighbors who I know pretty well, but you know, you don't always bring up these specific conversations. So that was good. That same friend, afterwards, she said, I want everybody to see this. I think this should be a Relief Society activity. And I actually couldn't agree more. I think that this is good for everybody. I think the nice thing about this film is it really focuses on the benefits of allowing us to coexist in a place of diverse thought and feelings without turning to violence, without turning to hate and belittling one another, and really working on using communication to learn to respect each other primarily, but also maybe we can bring our positions to a place of mutual understanding and maybe even come to see eye to eye on more than we thought capable. The lovely thing about this film is the women. So briefly, it's women from the pro-life movement and the pro-choice movement who come together in secret talks, and they end up doing it for 6 years. And where they came at a place of place of trepidation and maybe some animosity, they ended up loving, respecting, and considering the other ladies good friends. So the possibilities give hope. Certainly gives us something to think about, and I was really appreciative of this opportunity that I had to share it with some of my friends. So it was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and documentaries are a great way, like if we want to get, like, this was a great way to gather and connect with women, and like you said, a neighbor that, like, yeah, it's my neighbor, we're friendly like that. But this kind of, because of the trainings and like the little exercises that were worked into that night or the screening evenings, they give us an opportunity to kind of talk and share. And that's something that we learn as we were doing that the trainings with the documentary of the abortion talks, is that we find things in common, right? And so we don't necessarily have to invite people to, like, this documentary, or if we see something in the movie theaters, or to talk about. And I think sometimes we can have similar discussions if we're in like a neighborhood book group, or if we're in a ward, or with the ward, or with friends, or whatever, that depending on what you're reading, you know, you could have the same thing. And so if that's one way, like if people are looking for ways to connect with other women, you can start really light with some great fiction, you know, and then have a discussion, and those discussions can lead to other things. And then you get to learn a little bit more and a little bit more about the people that you're surrounding yourself with. And I think that's like your experience with your hosting the screening, is that you got to learn a little bit more about somebody that you feel like you know pretty well, but you got to kind of see a little bit deeper inside, and they got to see a little bit more about what you're about and your experience, and have the discussions. I think when we get ourselves talking, especially women, and we get to kind of see how we are similar, and we have that compassion part of us that really says, oh, you know what, that might be similar to an experience I had, or that might be similar to somebody else, or, you know, an experience of somebody that I really truly love. And so then it kind of connects us and says, that was really hard, or this person, you know, or vice versa, something like that. So I appreciate that. So that's one of the suggestions for Simply Connect this week, is to invite some women to gather to watch a movie or a screening. Maybe you're just going to grab a bunch of friends and go see the Barbie movie. And that sounds silly or whatever, but something that you can do together that just kind of promotes love and happiness and joy, or even those deep connections, is a great way to connect with other women. And so another thing we have, as we're talking about like sharing and having discussions, is our living room conversations, which MWEG has been facilitating, and Catherine Esslinger has really spearheaded this and has them. So Catherine, will you explain a little bit about living room conversations, what they are? And there's a plethora of topics that can be covered. Go ahead and share how that connects women and what you've seen through your experience with that.
All right. Well, a living room conversation, MWEG has some trained facilitators of living room conversations, and we've been hosting these on Zoom. We've been hosting at least 2 a month, but for Simply Connect, we've been hosting one of almost every week. And ideally, the group size is between 4 and 6, but a little bit smaller or a little bit larger is fine too. And these can be hosted like in person or virtually, and either is fine. And really, anyone can host these. But a trained facilitator or host makes it just a little bit maybe more comfortable, especially for a sensitive topic or a topic where strong feelings could come up. One of the things that we begin with is introducing ourselves, and then a little bit of sharing of personal thoughts and feelings about specific questions. And then we also have conversation agreements, which are 6 sort of ground rules that everyone agrees to abide by, and everyone reinforces for the rest of the group. So if someone is, say, interrupting someone else, then anyone is free to say a timeout. There's no crosstalk is permitted at this point, and so everyone helps to keep the conversation on track. And the conversation ground rules are so fundamental as skill building ways that we can learn how to engage better, and doing better listening and also better sharing, because everyone is taking responsibility for their part in the conversation. And I have found that using these kinds of skills in my regular conversations with people has been really helpful in having just better interactions with people that I may disagree with, or when situations become a little bit tense or difficult. And after we've gone through those introductory parts, then we begin to respond to questions about a particular theme or topic, where we're not encouraging people to share facts or data or arguments, but to share their personal experience about a topic. What has their feeling been about, for instance, about like, what would gender equity look like in their lives? Our last week's conversation was about women in society. So some of the questions were things like, well, how have you seen gender equity or inequity in your life, and what would an ideal situation look like for you? Things like that, where there's a lot of personal sharing about a topic. And the way that we build trust with one another, and we begin to see others' perspectives through that personal sharing, I have always come away from these discussions with something new that I wanted to act on, something new that I wanted to experience or try, or an appreciation of someone else's perspective. And it's been really a beautiful way of connecting with people that I'm not even in the same room with, but that I can begin to appreciate and understand them better. We have a living room conversation next week that we're hosting here in MWEG. It's on the 25th, on Tuesday evening, and it's about political peace building. And we're going to be putting the link in the newsletter and the Facebook discussion group for you, so that you'll be able to register and attend that if you would like to. We'd love to have anyone attend.
And we can put that in the comments of the video as well, just so people can kind of see that if this piques their interest. Catherine, through the living room conversations, how have you seen women connect maybe, I mean, that don't know each other at all, and how the conversation maybe evolves over, I don't know, they're not too long, about an hour or less, right? Like, how have you seen the connection evolve in general with the living room conversations?
There's generally, you can see in people's, in people's screens on Zoom, you can see sort of sometimes a sense of recognition. Oh, I have had that experience as well, like a nodding, or like, oh, sort of that surprise or recognition. I've always often had a really, a feeling arise in me of empathy or understanding, uh, or even love for people, to see, oh yeah, that seems like a difficult situation to be in, and or a difficult question. And I've certainly felt connection to people that I don't know, or that are across the country and I may never meet. And I've found that that's really, it there, humans need connection, and we need that. And it's something that has buoyed me up and helps me to feel stronger and better in the things that I'm trying to do every day.
Yeah, that was my experience in the living room conversation discussion that I participated in, was similar to that. The topic was, it was a little heavy, but it almost felt like a sacred space, because people were sharing experiences that were tricky and were life-changing for them, in a lot of ways, and something that they think about. And and it was just something that, some of their experiences, I thought, oh, I didn't, like, that's more common than I thought. And oh, like, I haven't experienced that. But like I was saying earlier, I know someone who I love who has experienced that kind of thing. And I had no, like, so had these guys. And it was almost like instantly, it was like, oh, I love you already, because that's really hard. And oh, your experience was hard. Mine was not. Like, I've never had that experience, or or something. It was like that. And so I would highly recommend anybody that's watching this to keep an eye out for the living room conversations. And Catherine, is there a link where it kind of shows what we have coming up, or tell people how they can participate in living room conversations going forward outside of MWAG? Or if they want to host one on a certain topic, how can they find that?
Right. Livingroomconversations.org has a list of their 155 existing topics that you can choose from, and also guidelines for creating your own discussion guide, where you can have they help you, walk you through how to create open-ended questions that will help people to feel comfortable and safe sharing. And so Living Room Conversations also hosts virtual discussions about all kinds of things with people from all over the world. And you can register for their conversations on their website. And MWAG's Living Room Conversations can also be accessed from the MWAG newsletter. We try to share them on Instagram when we have them coming up. We don't have anything scheduled for August yet, but we will be having some in August. So stay tuned.
Yeah, and if you are not signed up to receive the MWAG newsletter and you are interested in the living room conversations, you can drop a note in the Facebook discussion group. You can tag Catherine. She can give you more information about that. And you can participate in it. It is really, and even host one with some of your friends, or just put it out there and say, does anybody want to join me? Because I am interested in this topic and I want to hear other opinions and experiences with that. I do have a question for all of you, and just so I'm going to go through. So on the MWAG website for this week, Connect with Women, I'm going to go through and do the bullet points. We've talked about some of these, but then I want you guys to be thinking, what is your favorite way to connect with other women? So be thinking, so some of the suggestions that we have from MWAG, we talked about: plan a movie night with friends and family to watch a documentary. or any other movie, just a way you can gather. Visit, call, or write a woman who works in your local government or is an elected official. You can thank them. You can tell them why you or how you admire them for the work they're doing. Maybe they're doing good work and they aren't necessarily somebody that you would have chosen, but you see some positive value in what they're putting into your community. Find a local organization led by women or one that works to empower or protect women, and how can you get involved? Hi, welcome to MWEG. Or find another organization. Also, MWEG partners with other women-led organizations. So being here, you can also find other organizations that you might be interested in. Another idea is to invite someone to spend time together for an everyday activity, taking a walk, running errands, etc. One of my favorite things is I would have friends that would call and say, hey, I'm running to Target. What are you doing? And it'd be 9 o'clock at night. You know, we have an hour before it closes. And I'm like, yes, come get me, because I need somebody that's not my kids, that's not in my house, that I can connect with just for a few minutes and have an adult conversation, even if it's just on a very, light level. And I will say that some of my very deepest and almost, I would say, spiritual moments have been time that I would walk circles around my neighborhood with a good friend. We would have hard conversations, which MWEG helped me navigate how to have that hard conversation, because she and I were coming on topics that we came at from very different perspectives. And it brought us together even, and I thought that, and I remember thinking, and I was thinking about in preparation for today's Grow, if I was walking faster and I could feel my heart racing and I could feel my, like everything, like the tempo of everything was, I could feel myself getting worked up because I was so passionate, and she was a little bit too. So it was intense without being angry or hateful or mean. And to this day, I still love that person. And I just think like that was a really like poignant moment of connecting with somebody and communicating in a peaceful way. So find somebody, get a walking partner, right? Get somebody that you can do that. And I tell you what, the wee hours of the morning, if you don't live in a cold climate, are great because it's really quiet and peaceful, and you can have conversations like that, or nighttime, whichever. Learn more about a historical woman who has inspired you. Share your insights with a friend or family member. If you attended our conference, we did the Utah Women in History project. They came, and I don't think I said their name right. Better Days Utah, that's what it is. Better Days Utah, and they were talking about the women who were suffragettes in the early days of Utah to get the vote out. That was a great way. If you registered for a conference, go back and watch that video, and you should have access to all those old videos. If you are interested in hearing that discussion by Rebecca Clark, you can go, you can still pay for the virtual pass and watch all the videos, but that one specifically would be something that you could do. So now I'm kind of circling back to my question. What for each of you is your favorite way to connect with other women? Jess, I'm gonna have you go first.
So the one that stood out the most to me, well, of course, I am a walking girl. I go on walks with all my friends like weekly, but the way that I felt like connection with other women that's been like the strongest has been, I just started this past summer volunteering for the Refuge. They do basically like domestic violence and sexual assault services for women. And I got certified to be an advocate. And so I this summer have been like on a 24-hour call. Like I like have a phone for 24 hours, and there's like a hotline. And if anyone goes into the hospital for like a forensic exam, then 2 volunteers go and basically help advocate for that survivor. And that has been like the most touching and empowering experience, because it feels like there's so much that's going on in the world that like feels so wrong, and to finally be able to, first of all, connect with other women, to be able to like try and like make a small difference, but then also to connect with women who are going through something much harder than anything that I could ever really imagine. So Yeah, that's been a life-changing experience. And I actually, the only way I found out about that organization was I went, MWIG had a booth at like a civic engagement fair at BYU. And I was asked to go and like stop by, and I stopped by, and like 2 booths down was the refuge. And so on my way out, I was like, I have to get involved. So that's my answer.
I love that. I love that. Molly, how about you? What's your favorite way to connect?
Well, when you went through that list of things, my mind was like, yes, yes, yes. Cause I could think of times in my life that all of those things have helped me connect. But similar to Jess, I think the thing that has maybe been the biggest impact for me, and not only in terms of the work that we're doing, but is volunteer work specifically for MWEG. I've met incredible people, but the deep dark secret of the moderator group is that we have 2 chats. We had to separate them because our fun was interfering with our business. And Catherine knows this because she did some moderating for a short term, but I can honestly say that the relationship I've built with the other moderators from this group saved my mental health during the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything that ensued afterwards. And I've built lifelong friendships. And this is me plugging for everybody to start a group chat with women that you trust and can talk about the things that are important to you and the hard things that you're going through, and bouncing ideas off of people and celebrating the good moments and making each other laugh. There's nothing that can make you feel like valued and a part of something in quite the same way. So create a sisterhood for yourself.
It's a bit of validation as well, right? Like, I'm not actually crazy. Like, I'm not the only one having this experience or has had it. Like, when you have a group of women that encircle you with that kind of love and trust that you're talking about, you almost feel a little bit validated when you're having a struggle. And that's, I think, a lot of the things we've talked about is a lot of that connection is that they just help us get through things, right? And we need that support. We need to connect with other women to have a support group. Catherine, can you share what's your favorite way to connect with other women?
I guess, well, my way is also in with the theme that everyone else has mentioned. I also feel the most connection when I'm doing something that serves others. So a couple of nights ago, a bunch of women in my neighborhood came to my house, and we made a bunch of freezer meals for a couple of families in our neighborhood who are having significant health issues. And it was chaos and a lot of fun. And the meals we made were great, and they will serve a lot of people, but also the connection with one another and the sharing of our concerns and worries and feelings is the most impactful thing of all. So that's my favorite way.
Yeah, I think service is a great way when we do it, like a service with a group of people that we enjoy being with. That also brings us close together because we're doing something good, and we're doing something that makes us feel good while we're connecting. So then we get like the endorphins, right? And the blessings too. We'll add that on there. I just want to thank all of you for joining me today to talk about ways to connect with other women and sharing your experiences with that. Next week, we're going to talk about connecting with MWEG, and this was a good segue into that. And so I would just invite anybody that's watching today to join us next week, that if you have some curiosity about how you can get involved or how you can do just a little bit more, or what MWEG maybe has to offer you as a member, that you tune in and we'll give you some tips and we'll give you some ideas. or if you want to become a volunteer. We'll talk a little bit more next week about connecting with MWEG and becoming a volunteer like Jess has done. And I think all of us kind of started a little bit as volunteers, and now we're doing other things that are a little bit more involved, but it is a great community of women, and you really feel like you're making a difference somewhere. You know, it doesn't feel like our efforts are just going into the ether. It really, the feedback we get from other women across the country has been something, it's validating to know that women are finding MWEG and finding connection with other women to do good things in their community and to get suggestions and different things like that. So we hope you'll join us next week, and we hope that the suggestions that we gave today for your Simply Connect, that there's something in there that you may want to implement into your schedule. Maybe you do it just for summer, or maybe you make it a habit or an annual thing, whatever it might be. But we hope that that is something that has given you something to think about. And we will see you all next week. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, friends.